This episode of After the Whistle contains profanity. Listener discretion advised. Please enjoy.
Episode 12, Jeremy Roenick joining us. And inside this podcast, you're going to hear about Connor McDavid's 600 points, maybe some Hockey Hall of Fame talk. Why does the big rig fight Zdeno Chara right off the face-off? What the hell is going on there? And how long does it take for a number one overall pick defenseman, JR, to pan out and become a difference maker on a team? We'll talk about that because I have one in particular on my mind. I'm sure you could probably think about it. But what was funny, though, JR, about what we just said, and I know you got something to say about the weather, Craig does, but I just said to Jeremy before we turned on the pod here, ladies and gentlemen, I said, here's what we're thinking we'll discuss today, JR. And you're like, I don't even want to hear it. I want to know. Surprise me. And what's amazing about that, and I just told you this was a minute before that, Craig was like, Petey, I don't even know what we're talking about here. I mean, I need a little preparation. And I don't know if you liked my analogy, JR, but I said, hold on, no. I said to Craig, Craig, if I'm inviting you over for dinner with a bunch of guests, do you need a rundown of what we're going to discuss at dinner? It's in order to feel comfortable.
What we're going to discuss at dinner or what we're going to have for dinner?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm going to tell you right now, I want to know what you're making me for dinner, because if I don't like it, I'm not coming. So figure it out, Peters.
Me too.
Well, the show is the dinner, so you already like the dinner. What's the conversation at dinner is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's two totally different things, right? Two totally important things.
Listen, I sit there, sure. We want to have a little preparation, right? We're in this together. And I ask you these questions, you're like, Riv, got it all taken care of. Got it all written down. Don't worry about it. Just be ready. I'm like, ready for what? What are we talking about? I don't know, but I got it written down and everything's good.
Listen, this is what I found in television. What your first thought to a question usually is your best answer. And probably maybe the most controversial answer, and sometimes the most debated answer. So when you sit there and think about it, your answer gets less dramatic. So I would rather just have you ask me, and I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking.
I know, but here's the thing about guys like us, JR.
That's crazy what goes on in there, because if you pull it out right away, it can get hairy. I'm telling you.
Well, and that's kind of what I was going to say, was that's dangerous for guys like us, all of us. If we shoot from the hip, who knows? Who knows what how people are going to receive what we say.
Here's my response to that.
Craig wasn't looking. That was a middle finger for those of you just catching this on audio. Well, that's great, and I love it. So at least now you guys are a little bit prepared as to what we're going to talk about. But when JR popped on the Zoom, Riv, you said, what's going on? He said kind of a gloomy day or whatever. And you said you had something to talk about on that with San Jose.
He was talking about San Diego, and, in the morning, it's pretty early there, right, JR?
Yeah, it's 6:30. There's a marine layer. It looks like it's going to be a bad day, but it's really not going to be the case.
But it burns off. Yep. By, I'm not kidding you, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and it's completely blue skies. It's like Groundhog Day every day. Perfect. But when we played in San Jose, I remember driving to the rink every single day from where I lived. It was about 30 to 40 minutes, and every single morning was the same thing. It had the clouds, and it was kind of gloomy and gray, and you had that feeling like it was warm, but it was still had some cool to it. And that was because we were right on the ocean. And I didn't realize that all the clouds came in, and by the time we hit 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you would go outside, and it was not a cloud in the sky. It was amazing.
Well, down here in San Diego, we live in one of 8 microclimates in the world. So it literally is a microclimate, which it never really goes below 55 and doesn't really go too high above 80 or 85 right here in this little nook. And we get maybe 3 days of rain a year. So it's like the perfect weather that you can possibly find all over the world. Actually, the town that is right next to me called Rancho Santa Fe was rated and is documented as having the best climate in the world. So pretty happy about that. So it's going to be a nice day today, fellas.
Got to be expensive to live in. Got to be expensive to live in Rancho Santa Fe.
I just bought a condo. Holy shit, talkies, man! I got to do it though. Even though I don't like the taxes and the politics driving
Condo to rent?
Fucking crazy. No, I bought a condo that I'm going to live in and rent when I'm not here. So
okay,
it's a good investment.
I have a question before we get into the modern day hockey talk. When you guys are playing like in San Jose or JR when you were in Arizona, did you guys drive like pretty like sweet cars? Like everybody here in Buffalo had an SUV, Escalade, Range Rover, Lexus, whatever, Expedition.
I think Riv drove a truck everywhere, if I can remember correctly. Riv, you drove a truck.
Well, I had one of those white Escalade pickups, which was pretty cool. It was a nice truck, and I also had my 1969 Camaro. Remember the red convertible?
Sick, yeah. Sick.
Would you take that to the rink, Riv?
Yeah.
Really?
Sick car. Yeah, sick car.
Petey, I'm not kidding when I say this. The weather in San Jose was like a dream. Obviously, I played all my years in Montreal where it was about slush and cold and winter tires and, the scrapers and everything else. And you go down there and it was like Groundhog Day. It was like you would get your car washed to get dust off it, not dirt.
and again, it was one of those times where you look forward to getting up every morning because you knew you could wear flip-flops to practice. It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you a story about cars. So I've always kind of been a Mercedes guy. I did have a Bentley when I played in LA. I had a Porsche when I played in Phoenix, but mostly Mercedes and then an Escalade. But there was one time in Philly, my wife has horses. So we bought a Peterbilt, a big ass Peterbilt like truck, like a pull an 18-wheeler. And this thing had a big cab in the back and the thing was just nuts beautiful, all white. And I'm like, you know what? I'm bringing my son to the rink for practice. I'm going to bring the Peterbilt to practice.
Like a rig? Is this a rig?
It's a rig, like a big rig. And I hauled this thing into practice. I put him through the gates and the guys are walking in. I'm like, and this big old horn. And I parked it right in the middle of the
Does it go
parking lot
when you pump?
When you push the thing and it goes and the thing goes. I'm telling you, it was a big rig, and I took that to practice every once in a while. It just horrified everybody. It was great.
Did you have to have a special license for that?
Yeah, you did. You have to. What's it? C something license. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Well, Jay McKee had something like that here in Buffalo, did he not?
Okay, so I was actually just going to mention that, but he had an International CXT, it was called. And he said it was something like 2 kilograms lighter than a rig. Like one of the things so you didn't have to have a special license in this.
Right.
You got to look at this truck, okay? His nickname is the Cheese for a reason. And this is the Cheese. It's like a Mack truck. This was like a big Mack truck, but it had 4 doors. It had the part in the back, it went up, like it had a dumpster in the back type thing, and it had like the beeping noise when you went reverse. I mean, it was hilarious to drive around.
The amazing thing too is I remember when I got traded to Buffalo, I came to Buffalo to practice with the guys, and Jay McKee Cheese was out there, and the one day he showed up, which I was kind of like, you can kind of figure out what a guy's all about with the kind of car he drives sometimes, right? And one day, the first day, I remember Cheese pulling up in the transport truck. It literally was a transport truck. And I had my hockey equipment. And I watched him pull in. I watched him park it. I watched him get out with his hockey bag and walk in. And I was like, what the hell is that, right? The funny thing is, the next day he pulled up in a Ferrari 360 Medina Spider, right, Petey? Red Ferrari. I'm like, what is going on? I can't get this guy.
I gotta tell you the you know how sometimes you guys you'd go to games and maybe Riv, you'd go pick up Jumbo or somebody, you guys would go to, the games together, and maybe the wives would come together so you can have, one car each for the ride home. Well, one day I went to go pick up Brian Marchment in Chicago. Now, Brian Marchment's one of my very dearest friends and greatest friends on the planet. Him and I were so close in Chicago, and I figured I'm going to surprise Mush with our trip down to the arena, because it was my turn to pick him up. So I said, okay, what car am I going to take? And I'm looking in the garage. I have two cars. I have a truck, a Mercedes truck, and then a regular Mercedes. And I said, I look to the right and I see my Harley there. So I'm like, yep, it's a beautiful spring day. Pick up the Harley, back it out, spark her up with the suit on, put the glasses, rumble over to Mush's house. And Mush comes out like, what are you doing? I said, it's time to go to the game. He goes, I ain't getting on that thing. I'm like, yes, you are. Get on back, big boy. And he's like, no, man, I'm not getting on. I'm like, well, this is the ride today. This is the ride. We're taking the Harley. And the back seat was like this big, right? And Mush is a big guy. I'm like, jump on. And Mush is like, I hate you for life. And he jumped on with his suit and he grabbed me around here and he hung on for dear life.
You guys went to a game on a motorcycle together?
So we drove down the Eisenhower, which is about 20 miles to the stadium, to the old stadium, and Mush is on the back of me holding on. I used to see the looks that we got from all the people in the cars as we're going back, and Mush is holding on for dear life on a little Harley seat in the back.
Do you guys have helmets on?
He played like shit that night. I think his ass hurt so bad. Or he was scared to death of being on the back of it. He said he's never felt so unmanly in his life than holding on to me in the back of Harley.
Did you guys have helmets on?
No.
No. That's McKee's truck.
That's sick.
That was his everyday car that he would drive around in. We went to Toronto with my brother and our buddy Mike.
Mine
valeted at the hotel. He valeted this thing at the hotel.
Mine was almost twice the size of that. Almost twice the size. Peterbilt. It was massive.
You got to show us. You got to show us a picture. All right. Well, you didn't tell me though. You had your sports cars, your Porsche and your Bentley. Were they convertibles that you would take to the rink?
No, I hate convertibles. I never was a convertible guy.
Really?
I don't know.
Okay. I just would have thought. Last thing I'll say about cars, I always love.
You know what drives me crazy about people that own convertibles is when they drive them with their windows up. Why on earth would you put your fucking windows up if you have a convertible?
I saw someone doing that the other day. It was a nice day here. They were driving.
I drive by them. I'm like this. I'm like this when I drive by. Loser, put your.
Well, those like I see people.
Just like when I see somebody wearing a mask in a car by themselves, I do the same thing.
Yeah. Or those same people, and I hope I'm not offending you guys, that have the stick figure families on the back of their vans or their big SUVs. You ever see those? They have the mom, the dad, they have the two boys, the two girls, and the dog and the cat all in the back. I'm like, I don't give a shit about who's in that truck or van. Like, what are we doing here?
Or my child was an honor student at so I don't give a shit. Way to go. Congratulations.
Yeah. Or hey, caution, baby on board. Look, I'm still going to pass you with aggression. Okay. Like I hope that baby's buckled in. Anyway. Yeah. Those stick figure things, I see them all the time. And I just kind of look at the people when I'm driving, and I have to see if there's a stereotype to them, and there's not. That's just a personality thing.
I can understand sports stickers. Like, a lot of people here have the Bills or the Sabres and stuff like that. And I can understand that, but I had this conversation with my wife just the other day. We were talking about, you drive by in this, you got people that have stickers on their cars because their kid goes to a prep school here in town, and it's a little expensive, so it's just like, I just don't understand why you have to put that on the back of your car.
I heard a story about San Jose one time where you guys all had a team trip, and I think you both were on the same team. You're on the team together. And I don't want to name the players that didn't go, but I heard there were two players that were like, we're not going. So the whole one player, two players. Do you guys know the trip I'm talking about? It was to Vegas, I think. I heard there was
I was on the team then.
Yeah, I was on the team too. That was the situation.
There's two players. There's two players.
Yeah, there was two.
And I'm going to tell you this: it wasn't the players.
One's a forward, one's a defenseman, and it wasn't the players. It was the
wives.
It was the wives. It was the wives that said, "Oh no, you're not going to Vegas."
Yes, refused. The entire team was going. I had 3 kids at the time. JR had kids. Mike Greer had kids. I mean, we were the old guys. We had responsibilities.
Yeah,
Curtis Brown, 3 kids.
You know, Curtis Brown, the most religious guy on the team, one of the nicest people on the planet, who doesn't swear. With 3 little boys, he was going. There's 2.
2 players.
So forget about the players.
By the way, this is crazy because these are the bonding things, right? So we were going to go to the Super Bowl in February, right? And the GM says, you know what? I'll even give you the plane. Okay, we said that's great, but everybody's got to go. If one person doesn't go, the whole team doesn't go. Now we go on Saturday. The game was on Sunday. So everybody would have fun on Saturday, game on Sunday, come back Monday, and we practice Tuesday and Wednesday to play Thursday. That was the deal. And everybody's excited to go. Then got squashed because of 2 wives. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Same 2 wives of the Vegas trip too?
These are the bonding things. These are the bonding things that these teams need to go away. They come back, and the next thing you know, boom, they go on just a streak because everybody's together. They're having fun, right? Those are the bonding trips that are different than the normal trips that you go on. And we couldn't do it.
Okay.
Because of 2 guys.
So what did that do to the team? Like, how pissed were you, JR? Did you guys razz these guys the rest of the year, or did you leave them alone? Was it how does that play out? Because now it's 21 against 2. Okay. Like, I couldn't imagine did those 2 guys get traded by chance? I mean, why wouldn't they have been shipped out the next day?
You know, I don't think they were treated any different. I think guys in that locker room in San Jose were very tight. Like the tightest team I have ever been on by far. And I think guys were not necessarily upset at the players in general. They were upset at the situation. They didn't treat the players any different. It was disappointing. There was more disappointment at that point in time than anything. You know, would have loved to do it, but you know, at the end of the day, we were such a tight group. We moved on from it, and there was absolutely, I think, no hard feelings. I think obviously those guys probably got a little. Got a little.
What do you mean, JR? You think were there hard feelings?
I think there was a lot of respect lost by a lot of them, no question.
Yeah.
Because hey, listen, this is always family before team. Family before sports, okay? That's, you know, in certain situations, but not when your whole team is doing something together and everything is cool and kosher at the house. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's doing well. Everybody's happy. That's a situation where, okay, let's do it. Then we go to the boys and we go to the team and we do what we have to do because that's our job, and that's our job to be a team. And when something gets in the way of that team unity, regardless of what it is, especially when it's decided by somebody that's not on the team, I think there was a lot of respect, or at least animosity towards somebody not standing up and saying, no, this is how it has to happen.
I could absolutely understand that. That's a huge moment for a team to, like, no NHL teams get that kind of leash. No, I've never heard of it before. When I heard that story, I'm thinking to myself that, like, I could never imagine Darcy Regier never would have signed off on that. Lindy Ruff never would have signed off on that.
The problem is one of the players had a letter on a sweater, which really makes things even more upsetting.
Well, we'll say no more. It's an interesting story, but that all kind of got started in many different ways. We were talking about vaccinations and things like that with the Ottawa Senators. One thing I'll say, we keep talking about him, JR, is Connor McDavid. Did you see he hit his 600th point the other night, but more importantly, have you seen the stages in which he's done it?
Yeah.
So like the last 100 points came in 53 games.
It's pretty incredible, and even more so, the fact to watch what Connor McDavid is doing, and to see that he is second behind Draisaitl is even more unbelievable. To tell you the truth, 31 points for Draisaitl, 15 goals.
McDavid's the second best player in the game right now, as far as I'm concerned.
By the way Draisaitl's playing right now, I would not disagree with you, Riv, 100%. I mean, this kid is on a tear. But this is the great thing about McDavid, right? You always know that he's going to have an impact. So when I was watching a game, Edmonton, I think, was losing at home, and they went to there's like 5 minutes left, and they were talking about the game, and John Tortorella says, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. This game's not over, because Connor McDavid's going to have something to say about this soon. No more than a minute later, he scores that unbelievable goal a week and a half ago. Remember that unbelievable goal? He comes in and just embarrasses
against the Rangers.
Against the Rangers, that's right. And they ended up beating the Rangers because McDavid just at the right time does heroic McDavid things that just bring people out of their seats. He's just absolutely spectacular.
So, greatest player of all time, maybe? Has he earned that? Is it getting there?
I think he is the most talented player ever to put skates on. I think he's the most talented ever to put skates on.
So it's not just his speed that gets him to that level. It's the skill that goes along with it, the finish, kind of the combination of it all.
He does things and thinks of things that nobody else thinks of, like where he stick handles, where he puts the puck, how he protects the puck, when he passes it, where he goes, how he picks up his speed. His brain is so unbelievable, and he's putting up. He put up 2 points a game in the most talented time that the game has ever seen, where goaltenders are big, strong, athletic, talented. Defensemen are big, strong, good skating, talented. Forwards are big, fast, strong, talented. Back in the 80s and 90s, we had goaltenders that would not go down because they didn't want to stand back up again. Right? Because they were so out of shape.
Kick save.
Goaltenders. Yeah.
Kick save.
I mean, nothing against Gretz back in the 80s, but did you see the way defensemen skated back then? It wasn't like they skate now. You see how goaltenders played back then? It's not like I remember Grant Fuhr. Grant Fuhr used to take his stick and he used to try to hit the puck with a stick rather than go down to get it, because he just didn't want to get back up.
But this is going to be a debate until, the end of time. Who is the greatest player ever? And it's going to be Wayne Gretzky, because Wayne Gretzky in his time, in his era, was something superhuman. He was doing things that were completely off the chart.
What would
is he the greatest hockey player? I know that.
What would McDavid do back then? Like,
okay, but what I'm saying is,
McDavid now.
What would Wayne Gretzky do playing in the 40s? What would Wayne Gretzky do playing in the 50s? He'd have 350 points.
My son just said, if we put Connor McDavid today in a game in 1984, he would get 4 or 5 points every game.
Oh my God, he'd get more than that. He'd get 10. He'd have 1,000 points a year. He'd have 1,000 points a year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and
there's no question.
I don't believe that he would even be in the 80s and the 70s. And here's the thing: this is what we have to remember. We cannot take away from all of the greats that played back in that time, because this is Connor McDavid.
We're complimenting the evolution of the game, is what we're doing.
Exactly. And we need to word this properly, because Connor McDavid is the best player to ever don skates. There's no question about it. Okay, but Wayne Gretzky is the greatest player to ever play this game.
Hold on. There's a difference between the best and most talented. Okay, because we've seen talent before. And we've seen people that can do the most unbelievable things on skates, right? But and have all the tools, but they have no toolbox, right? No toolbox, like dumb as a stump. So it doesn't matter how good you are. You're not. We see players today in the game that can skate like the wind, shoot the puck harder than anybody, can hit, can do everything, but can't score a goal because they don't do the right things to score a goal. This is not Connor McDavid. So there's a difference between the best and the most talented, I think. Gretz had it all, but Connor McDavid has it all plus speed, right? Plus the speed and his agility.
Yes.
Gretz wasn't the fastest guy.
And you know what? In 2000, in 2050, we're going to be talking about somebody else.
I don't know.
Talking about yes, we will, because you know what, Petey, I'm going to tell you this. In 2050, 30 years from now, they're going to try and figure out a way to make the ice better. Okay, just little things. Think about it. So sticks have gotten better from the 80s to 2021. Skates are 10 times better. Everything's better. Better equipment that's even lighter than what was the phone books.
I don't know how you can get better than what they have right now unless you put little rocket ships on the bottom of people's skates.
But you know what's going to happen is they're going to find ways to make the ice better for the 20 minutes that it's on the ice. The cooling system, something's going to happen that's going to make the ice, like when you step on it at the start of the game.
It's funny you said that, Riv. Where's the best ice in all of the National Hockey League?
Used to be in Edmonton all the time.
Edmonton, exactly. And it's just unbelievable how the two top guys in the league are consistent because they get to play on the best ice. So, Riv, that's really, I think
they're going to do something in 30 years. In 30 years, they're going to find a way to make the ice damn near perfect for the entire 20 minutes of the period. They're going to connect. Remember that steel? You know the steel that's on the blade? Well, every year they're coming out with different steel, that has a better glide. It's going to make players faster. They're going to evolve this game just like the players are. Connor McDavid and the players today, they're not like the players even 20 years ago. The players 20 years ago, I would say, were thicker, stronger. The players now, if you were to see players off the ice, they look skinny.
And
they're
look
skinny.
Young. They look like they should be in high school.
Yes.
Back in the 80s, they looked like they should be in San Quentin.
That's exactly it.
You go back and look at pictures from guys that were like 26 in like the 40s.
They look like 40.
They look like they're 55 years old. They look like they're on the edge of retirement.
Now we have kids that look like they're in sophomores in high school.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I want you to finish the point you were saying about Gretzky. You said Gretzky about his skating and his speed or something about that.
No, so I was gonna say if you go back into the 80s, do you think Gretzky was the most talented player? Speed, agility, strength? No, I mean, if there's an argument that you can say Messier was faster, Messier was stronger, Messier, but what Gretz had, and I think Gretz will go down as the smartest player ever to play the game. Smartest. And when you're smart, you can do a whole shit ton of things better, no matter how much talent you have.
Wayne Gretzky
Mario, kind of the same thing. Wayne will go down without question. It's a debate whether he'll be the best player or most talented, but in my opinion,
but again,
go down
JR,
as the smartest.
Can you say that?
Ever.
Can you say that right now? Because when you look at the 80s and the 90s and watch one of those games on TV, looks like they're skating in quicksand.
I agree, but this is my point.
So Connor McDavid has to make plays at a much faster pace, higher level. So is he
that's
Gretzky,
again, we're talking about the brain. We're talking about the brain not being the most talented.
So what's the difference between Mike Gartner, who was the fastest player of his time and scored 700 goals, and Connor McDavid?
Oh, the stick handling. I think his ability to see the ice. Mike Gartner was like this. Mike Gartner was a goal scorer that skated in a tube, okay, and he scored goals because he went fast. He wasn't a guy that took the puck, opened up, looked for somebody to pass to, made really good passes. Mike Gartner was a great player, but he was a straightaway player and he was a goal scorer. And that's what Mike Gartner did. Mike Gartner, I don't believe, made other people better. Mike Gartner was great and could score goals and could skate like the wind, and you couldn't catch him. He was breakaway after breakaway. But when you talk about the entire game, like Gretz did, like Mario did, like Connor McDavid does, like Crosby does, they make everybody they play with better. Everyone.
What did you think? I don't know if you heard it or not. John Tortorella said on ESPN last week that he thinks Connor McDavid needs to change his game in order to win in the playoffs. And by that he means you're not just going to fill the net in the playoffs. Like, you have to play on the other side of the puck even more. So.
It's the Alex Ovechkin conversation we had. Right, Alex Ovechkin didn't win a championship till he decided that he had to play both sides of the puck. Now, I don't think Connor McDavid's a bad defensive player. I think he's a very good defensive player. And I disagree, tell you the truth, because Connor McDavid has been the epitome of consistency in my books. He plays the same whether it's in the every single game, and he hasn't had a chance really in the playoffs to show what he can do in the playoffs because his team doesn't fucking make it because they don't give him any support. This year, different story. This year, this is the Edmonton team that we've been waiting to see and we've expected to see for a long time. I mean, even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is up there in points. Like, he's starting to chip in. Some guys are starting to play the way that they're supposed to play there in Edmonton, and their record shows it.
I love it. We have a discussion that we have here regularly about, the Sabres, and they have a defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin who's doing all right this year. But he just signed a 3-year deal for $6 million per, and I'm not suggesting that you have seen a ton of him or not, and that's not my question, but how long do Sabres fans need to wait for a number one defenseman, a generational talent, as they've called him, to actually blossom into that type of player? It's now year what, Riv? 4?
Yeah, yep. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to be a very good defenseman in the league, but he's not going to be a star. He's not going to be a star, and you can just tell by the way that he plays. He's too inconsistent from game to game. I think he does things that he makes mistakes on the defensive side because he's an offensive minded defenseman, and he does make mistakes. And I think when he makes mistakes, he really takes it very personal, and then he tries harder and then makes more mistakes. I think the kid's I think he wants it. I think he's extremely good, but I don't think he's going to turn out to be the generational player ever that everybody thought he was going to be. Now take this for consideration. Look at Cale Makar in Colorado. Now, this kid, he was a star right from the beginning. I mean, he got in there and he looked like Paul Coffey. And
is that because he came into a team that was one of the top teams in the National Hockey League? He was supported by McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. You can go on and on that team. They were strong offensively with top end players. Do you not think that makes a big difference? Like, Rasmus Dahlin's come into this league.
I think it makes a little. I think it definitely has an impact because Cale Makar could come in and feel like he could take more chances. They could play more his style of game because he had the support. Dahlin came in and it was like an onslaught of offense against them. Lose mentality. It's going to play dividends on somebody's mind, and I'm sure it has with Rasmus. But Rasmus does not have the talent that a Cale Makar has, right? He just doesn't, and it's really
doesn't
weird.
Move the same. He doesn't move the same. He's more elusive than he is fast, and that's That's going to
No,
be
it's interesting.
Let's think about some of these first round picks, some of these top picks, right? You have Kako, who's playing so cocky, and I don't mean cocky as an ego. I mean cocky as in shit. With the Rangers, he's a second overall. You have Lafreniere right now, again, same team. He's not doing shit in New York right now. And you talk about Dahlin, like and even the number one pick, even Jack Hughes isn't panned out. Like it's crazy to see some of these top picks that are underperforming right now. It's kind of frustrating if you ask me.
Maybe it's, but well, I don't. Obviously, we're not going to solve that problem today. But I just think maybe it's time for the league to look at an older draft age. The NFL brings players in. The reason why these guys can step in and all play right away in the first, second, and third rounds because they're all 23, 22, and they've all
they have to go to college. They have to go to
3 years in college working on their bodies and training. And
you get the very odd guy that will come out of college as a freshman and play in the NFL.
Well,
right
at
20.
They don't do what I did. That never happens. What I did anymore. It never happens. You never see a player come out of high school anymore. I mean, NBA, it happens still every once in a while, and a very, very rare football
like
guy.
Once a year, right, Jer?
Yeah. Yeah, in basketball once a year, maybe twice. I was watching the football games over the weekend, and where they have the players come on and announce the schools that they went on. I heard a couple that said high school that didn't even go, that were undrafted free agent signings. That's the only way you can go play football, is if you're undrafted and you make a roster through a free agency signing. But in hockey, I think I was the last player, I believe, to come out of high school straight to the National Hockey League. Before it was Tom Barrasso, it was Bobby Carpenter and Phil Housley. And I can't recall anybody else coming straight from high school.
Straight from high school? I don't even I knew you got drafted out of high school. I didn't know you actually.
Year. Yeah.
So you played?
I didn't play. They didn't go my senior year of high school. I went after my junior year of high school.
So did you play in the NHL before you played in the Q?
Yeah, I played 4 games with the Hawks before I went to the Q. Yeah.
So you literally came right out of high school. Who was your first game against? Who was your?
So Tony Monti, who we know was one of the best, right wingers of all time. He scored 14 goals. He was my right winger in high school. Like, we crushed the prep school league in Boston. So I was center. He was my right winger. After my junior year, I went to turn pro, and he went back to algebra class. Think of that. He was still in high school in algebra class, taking history, and I went to play pro. That's just amazing to me, right? Because Tony Monti, to me, is like one of the best right wingers ever to play. To me, I mean, one of the best goal scorers.
Who's your first game against? We'll wrap this up here. Who was your first game against?
New York Rangers.
Who'd they have in the lineup that were you shitting your pants? What was going through your mind, or were you just so cocky that you're like, I'm going to go?
No, man. I was 158 pounds, soaking wet. I had these big Donzi shoulder pads on that Mike Keenan put on me because I was so small. He wanted me to look big. I mean, I have stories from my first 2 weeks of being in Chicago that will, they'll make your eyes flip behind your head. It was crazy. But I didn't score 1 point for the Hawks in 4 games. And Keenan's like, you know what? We should probably send him down so he can play against some little higher competition, because I was coming from high school. So they sent me to the Q, right, to play in Hull, and I just lit the Quebec League up on fire. I think I had 72 points in 26 games or something like that. 74 points in 26 games. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And then I came back. I went to the World Juniors in December.
28 games, 34 goals, 36 assists, 70 points. That's a 170 point season, maybe in the Q. 165 point season.
Yeah, I would have lit it up. And
9 games, 19 points in the playoffs.
You know what's funny? I played 28 games, and I made, at the end of the season, I made the first team All-Star team. And I played 28 games that season.
So wait a minute, you played 4 games that year. Your first 4 games, you didn't have any points with the Hawks? Then you
0.
went back up and played 16. So you had 18 points. You had 9 goals, 9 assists in your return.
Yeah, when I went back in February, I went back on Valentine's Day, scored my first goal against Minnesota, and that's a whole story in itself. And then they kept me up there for, you know, what they say, 16 games or something, 17 games. And yeah,
Again,
going
back to the original conversation question is, you know, should players be drafted at, what is it, 18, or should they move it to 19? But if you're going to pick in the first round, you can only pick a kid that's 18. That's what I would do. Your first round.
You know what I like, Riv, is, you know what they do in the major junior is they give these special exemptions to special players, right? So I don't think it would be a bad thing to move the draft to 8 to 19 or 20. Let them develop a little bit more. Let them get some, you know, let them play in junior a little bit longer. But if there's a generational player like a Connor McDavid, like a Sidney Crosby, you know, the guys that did get that special exemption to get drafted a year early to get in, that could be a situation at National Hockey League.
I think that would be the smartest and greatest thing for everybody in the world who's a hockey player, is to be able to take that and move it back 1 year.
I agree, 100%.
That's Sega 94 JR right there.
Right there.
That is Sega.
Oh, Jesus.
You can't use that guy. You cannot use that guy.
No,
that pumpkin pie haircut is freak.
That's my high school picture. That's my high school picture, baby, right there. Yep. Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. There's God. I have good hair, and it's just changed a lot over time.
JR. I'm going to end this with this. I have that book in my possession. It was my brother's, and it was given to him for Christmas. It's called A Day in the Life of the National Hockey League. And it's a picture book, and it shows all the pictures of guys traveling and at dinner and in hotels and doing ice packs and stuff. It's like Hard Knocks in picture style, but the whole league, right? And there's a picture of you. You got your leather jacket on, you got a backwards hat, the long hair, and you're sitting on the trainer table talking to Tony Amani. Shows a picture of you signing jerseys, and that was Sega 94 JR. I mean,
big mullet, man.
You were a goddamn rock star, right?
Big mullet, yeah. Unfortunately, I acted like one, which is the problem.
No.
That's amazing.
We all got to have that edge, man. We all got to have that edge.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's one thing. It's one thing to walk the walk. It's another thing to talk the talk. But if you talk the talk, you better fucking walk the walk. And I think I did that. But you know, unfortunately, too many people today are holding things that I said or the way that I acted back then, when probably gave them a lot more exposure.
My favorite JR story was when you were healthy scratch somewhere and you went to dinner. And I just told that story. Last week. Last week I was up in Toronto, and my buddy picked me up from the airport. And by the way, what a shit show trying to get into Toronto with all this COVID bullshit. But that's another story, and it's all self. But my buddy picked me up. He says, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" And you know where I said? I want to go to the Keg. I haven't been to the Keg since I went there in Vancouver. When I watched the Leafs Sabres game at the Keg the other night. I sat at the bar and I had a ribeye.
Listen, so the Keg owes me like a lot of free dinners, because during the 2005-2006 season, I gave them more free publicity of my dinner with Mike Hudson during the game. Now I'll just preface it for you. I was playing in Phoenix. Gretzky was the coach. I was injured and I wanted to play that night. I felt healthy to play that night in Vancouver. So I said to Gretz, I want to play. So we go out for warm-ups, come off the ice, and the coach usually comes in and says, who scratched, from warm-up. And they said, I come in and said, JR, you're scratched tonight. And I'm like, damn. I'm like, I wasn't like pissed. I was just disappointed. I know I'd been hurt and stuff like that, but I got scratched for the game. So not thinking anything, I rode the bike, took a shower, and Mike Hudson, who was my teammate in Chicago, the guy that I lived with for 4 years, lived in Vancouver. So I text him. I said, "Are you at the game?" And he goes, no, I'm actually at the keg down the street watching it at the bar with a couple friends of mine. I said, I'm coming. So I get dressed and I leave the arena and I go to the keg and I'm sitting at the bar having dinner with Mike Hudson watching the game. And there's some donkey at the bar that tweets, Jeremy Roenick's at the bar, with a beer watching the game, and it goes all over the place.
You knew that was going to happen, JR. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, like, I'm not playing. I don't need to fucking be there. I'll get back and get on the bus and then we can leave. Well, this was like not supposed to happen, as the National Hockey League says, right? So so the National Hockey League calls the Coyotes. You can't have that. Players have to go into the press box to watch the game. You're not allowed to leave the arena. And I'm like, so I remember going into Gretz's office. Okay, so I go in, and this is a couple days later, and Gretz is like, JR, I get it. I know you didn't do anything wrong. I've left games before when I wasn't playing, but it's a different time. And, the league wants everybody up in the press box. They want to come down hard on you, and we're going to have to suspend you for a couple games. I'm like, for what? He said, because you got to be up in the press box. I said, where does it say that, Gretz? Where does it say that? Where does it say you got to be in the press box? Show me. He goes, well, it's kind of an unwritten rule. I said, you're going to fucking suspend me because of an unwritten rule? No, you're not. No. You want to see me explode? You want to see me go really fucking nuts? No. I said, that's bullshit. So anyway, it was JR at the keg having dinner. JR misses 2 games, because of suspension. It's such horse shit. I said, if you want a rule, write it down. If there's a rule, make it a rule. Don't give me this unwritten rule.
So you did get suspended?
They didn't play me for 2 games. Whether it was, they called it a suspension. Again, the Coyotes did the politically correct thing by not playing me for 2 games. Fuck off.
JR,
it's just dumb.
I was playing in Buffalo, and I was regularly a healthy scratch, and I accepted my role in the league, and that was fine. But the odd time there were guys that were out of the lineup, whether it was due to injury or coach was unhappy with them, that you'd end up sitting beside and they'd be pissed off. And I remember guys would regularly say, hey, you want to pull a JR, head out of here, go for dinner. It became a thing. It would be like, hey,
the funny thing is,
you want to pull a JR?
Like, I don't condone my actions. I think I made a mistake, and I now that I'm older and looking back on the situation, I was a healthy scratch in Montreal the year that I got traded to San Jose, and at the time, I was actually playing quite well. The night before, we ended up losing a game, I think, to Detroit 2-1. I scored the goal that night. I actually played. It was in Detroit, and I played exceptionally well. The next night, Saku Koivu, it's our ritual. He picks me up every game in his Bentley. Not a big deal.
Great guy, by the way.
And super guy. And we go to the rink, and we're
Bentley
always the
in
first
Montreal.
ones there.
That's practical. Carry on.
Yeah. So it was the Flying Spur. So it was the big one. It was the long one.
Oh, sorry. Was it the Flying Spur?
I sat in the back. But anyway, I get to the rink. It's the same thing. Saku goes into the locker room where grabs the sticks, lays them at his locker. I get undressed. We had our routine down to a science, and we pass each other in the hallway after he's done his stuff. I'm done my stuff. And he comes to me, he goes, hey, you need to go look at the board. I'm like, what? What's going on? He goes, just go look at the board. So I go look at the board. My name's not on the board for the starting lineup that night. So I go in, and Guy Carbonneau go into his office, and I just said, what's going on? He goes, listen, we haven't been playing very well, and I need to make a splash.
Oh.
He goes, there's only 3 ways to make a splash on this team. He goes, one is to sit Saku Koivu. And he goes, I'm not sitting Saku Koivu because he's the captain of this team. He goes, number 2 is to sit Sheldon Surrey. And he goes, I'm not sitting Sheldon Surrey because he is leading defensemen in goals right now for the season. He goes, third is you, Rivs. He goes, you've been an assistant captain here for years, highly respected, and I need to make a statement, and you're going to be the guy. And I looked at him like, fuck you. Right?
Wow.
And walked out of his office.
Did you
and
say
I got
that?
my yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. He's a little weasel. I don't have any respect for him at all as a coach. But anyway, I got in my car and I drove home. That's it. Watched the game, got out of my suit, put my feet up, grabbed a couple cold cleansing lagers, and watched the game at home.
How'd they do?
They, be honest with you, I don't even remember. Don't remember.
Passed out before the end of the game.
Probably, but there was nothing said to me after that. They didn't say anything to me after that. But listen,
so you didn't get sat out for 2 games because
I didn't get sat out for leaving, and
So obviously you didn't know the rule either. You didn't know the.
Yeah, I didn't know the rule. The unwritten rule, yeah. The unwritten rule only applies to, I guess, certain players, right, JR? So it's interesting
how many times do you think Gretz left the arena or didn't even come to the arena if he wasn't playing when he was playing?
Well, how many games did he not play?
Well, he was injured at certain times. I would like to know whether, Gretz is Gretz. I mean,
yeah.
he might have gone and signed some autographs somewhere else and didn't go to a game when he was hurt. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know. I just think it was a crazy thing. By the way, way to throw some good dirt down saying how you don't respect Carbonneau as a coach. That was awesome. That was great.
I didn't like him at all. I didn't like him at all. I didn't respect him at all. I didn't like the way he did things. He was, I had some really good coaches. I had Jacques Demers, who I really liked. I only had him for a very short period of time, and I was only 20 years old at the time. I had Mario Tremblay with the All-Star team, Steve Shutt, and who's the Roadrunner? Who's the Roadrunner in Montreal?
Yvon Cornway.
Yvon Cornway, yes.
Is it really Yvon Cornway?
Yes, absolutely. So the whole group couldn't speak English. They talked. Our pregame talk was all in French. I'm not kidding you when I say that.
Can I ask you a question? Was it Jacques Demers that came into the locker room the one time I heard this story? I think it was Jacques Demers. They came in. He was all pissed off about the team and what they were doing out off the ice and all that stuff. And in his French accent, he goes, "You guys think that I know fuck nothing, but let me tell you, I know fuck all."
Come on.
It wouldn't listen. I mean,
it's right in front of the team. He goes, you guys think I know fuck nothing. But let me tell you, I know fuck all.
Yeah.
Man. Jacques Demers, one of the greatest guys of all time. Jacques Demers.
Yeah.
Seriously, one of the greatest. But I love that story.
But just to go over my coach, Alain Vigneault. I had Alain Vigneault there. I thought he was a really good coach. I thought Claude Julien was outstanding. I loved Claude Julien. Michel Therrien, which you either love Michel Therrien or you hate him. I liked him. I liked him a lot. I think that I liked my time with him. I had Bob Gainey. Oof. That's another level. That's another level human being. So I mean, when he walks into the room, you just stiffen up. I mean, he has such respect. He was such an incredible presence. Coach, and presence. And then I get Guy.
I think we all have that one coach.
I mean, it just didn't
we
for
all have
me.
That one coach.
And he was a great player. We watched Guy, and I played against Guy, but it wasn't a fit for me in Montreal. So anyway,
last thing,
one coach, right? We all have that one coach.
Yep.
It's just awful.
And who was yours? Is it say Keenan?
No. Keenan's my favorite. Was probably my favorite. I mean, he turned me into the player that my concussions keep coming as my first coach that I had in Phoenix. He came from junior as the junior coach.
I'll look him up right now.
See, this 1996, 97 coach
Your first
starts
year
with
at
an
Phoenix?
H. Yeah, starts with an H. See, this is how
Don
this is how much
Hay.
Don Hay.
Hey, oh yeah, the legendary Western WHL coach.
Yeah, I heard a story that he wanted to trade me for like 3 good Canadian players. Somebody told me, like in my first year. I mean, I don't know whether he has something against Americans, but somebody told me that. But Don was just he had no presence. He always asked Keith Kachuk and Teppo Newman and what he should do, how he should coach, and so he was just a
Don Hay was he won all the
junior.
Memorial
He's a
Cups.
junior coach.
World
Junior
Juniors,
coach.
World Juniors and
Yeah.
Memorial Cups.
He's
I think he was.
He's an epic all-star junior coach, and that's
Yeah,
what he
Riv,
should
you're
have
right.
stayed. That's
I
what
think
should have stayed.
he was in Kamloops with those big Kamloops teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
Well,
like
he should have
that.
stayed. He should have stayed in Kamloops because he sucked in Phoenix.
It's hard to make a transition from, certainly
Sure.
making it from junior hockey where you're dealing with basically kids, you're dealing with 16,
the guy in
17.
Arizona right now. The guy in Arizona right now is learning that the hard way.
Yeah, but
over under on.
he's
on
also he
Arizona
was
wins
he
this
was
year.
not dealt a very good hand, right, JR? I don't care who you are and what all-star coaching staff you have in Phoenix. I mean, it
True.
is what it is. So
It is what it is, and it is bad. Over under.
well, I'll tell you right now,
Over, under,
Shane
over,
Wright
under.
Shane
Over, under,
Wright
Shane
will
Wright.
be the
Oh,
new
let me-
beginning in Phoenix.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I was having that conversation with my son the other day, and that could be very well true. They might get the next 3. They're going to become the Edmonton Oilers of the 2020s.
Here's my
They might
final
get-
prediction before we leave. Arizona wins the lottery. They trade that pick to Toronto and they get Austin
Absolutely,
Matthews.
absolutely not.
Okay. Well,
Shane
I
Wright
know. Yeah, this kid, Shane Wright's
an
supposed to be
absolute-
generational.
well, then Austin
generational
Matthews ends
player.
up there in 4 years when his deal ends up then, but he's not. He'll be an Arizona Coyote.
maybe.
They got to get.
Maybe.
They got to get a lot better in order for him to go there. They got to get a lot better than they are right now. But I give them 8 games over under on wins this year. 8.
JR,
That might
you're
be
the
it.
man.
That might be the worst record in the history of the National Hockey League. Can we look that up for the next show? Because that will be a fun comp.
The worst record in the NHL. I'll look that
History.
up right now.
What was the record just like 7 years ago? Colorado Avalanche had 48 points that year?
Yeah, and then they went to the playoffs the next year. There was one of the most amazing turnarounds
right.
of all time. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think they had like 14 wins that year. You might 14 or
Here they
15.
are from 10-1. 93-94 Ottawa Senators. 14-61-9. 89-90 Quebec Nordiques. This is in order from 10 down to the worst. 89-90 Nordiques. 12-61-7. I think that was
Go to the top. Go to the bottom 3.
Bottom 3. Bottom 3. Ottawa Senators 92-93, 10-70-4. 92-93 San Jose Sharks, 11-71-2. And the worst were the 74-75 Washington Capitals, 8-67-5. And I don't think
That's gonna
Arizona's
push
going to
it.
win. I don't think Arizona's going to win 8 games this year.
I think that's going to be pushed. That's going to be the watch of the year.
What is their record now?
1-14.
1-14-1.
1-13-1.
Oh, sorry.
1-13-1. Yeah. And there's no end in sight.
Well, there's an end in sight for this episode, and you know what, JR, I'll say this: we wanted to try to keep it shorter today for you because you're so generous with your time, but the conversation is just always unbelievable. There's nowhere in the last hour that I could have just shut this thing down. It's just too. You guys shit.
The hour seems like 20 minutes.
I know.
I know.
Flies by.
But if we
Flies
did
by.
one of those fast forward videos, you could see the sun slowly kind of getting lighter in your background.
It's
so,
coming. It's coming. And the haze is starting to burn out, and it's almost golf time, baby. It's almost golf time.
enjoy your breakfast and your golf time. We love having you on. You've been great feedback too with you. And we got Riv's audio all figured out this week. So really big turn of the show yesterday. Rivs is all sorted out.
I love it. Great stuff, guys. Great stuff.
Had a good day.
Thanks, JR.
Thanks, JR.
Yeah, we'll chat with you next week. That's a wrap on another episode of After the Whistle. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, After the Whistle, and at Craig Rivet 52, at the Instigator 76. And you can find us, as you already know, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else where you can get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the word.